So, hello everybody. This is our third mini panel talk, and we have two wonderful speakers. First of them is Nicoletta Boriello, who is not here, but I will introduce you about her. Nicoletta is a proud member of the Italian Theosophical Society with a love for all things spiritual and a deep aspiration for both Eastern stillness and Western wonder. Her journey into meditation and the comparative study of spiritual tradition began 2012, and by the time 2016, she joined the DS. Now she's juggling cosmic wisdom and calendars as a vice president of the Roberto Assagioli Lodge in Rome and a board member of the Italian section and an active part of the Young Theosophists. When she's not exploring the mysteries of the universe, Nicoletta is firmly grounded, quite literally, as an environmental engineer. She graduated engineering in 2010 and has been working ever since to help the planet breathe a little easier. For years, she's also volunteered with the Italian NGO Engineering Without Borders, providing that she's not just about inner peace, but also about outer action. And now, let me share her video.
Hello everyone, greeting from the Theosophical headquarters in Rome. I'm very happy to take part in this mini panel discussion. Since I can't be with you in person, in agreement with Mary Kay, I recorded this video. And I hope you can appreciate it and that this contribution may enrich the talk of today. The theme of how Theosophy has inspired me is very stimulating. And as to me, personally, what drew me to this path was the feeling of freedom. I needed to explore the idea that there might be, somewhere in the world, the possibility of truly being free. My approach to Theosophy allowed me to perceive that this possibility exists, and the Theosophical Society has been offering me the opportunity to take the path on which this perspective can turn into reality. Today, I can say that this path, made up of ongoing research, of ups and downs that stem from our human nature, and of constant interaction with others, which is both enriching and a responsibility. This path confirms to me that the glimpse of awareness I had intuited years ago was real. The possibility of being free exists, truly. But what is freedom? To answer this question, I talk about the one who truly inspired me and led me towards the Theosophical Society, Jiddu Krishnamurti. I believe the concept of freedom was one of the core and most powerful messages of his teachings. When we think about freedom, we often direct to external things. The freedom to move, to express our opinions, to choose who we are, to do what we want. Krishnamurti invites us to look much deeper, and it tells us that true freedom is not something granted from the outside. It is not given by society, not guaranteed by law. True freedom is internal, and it arises when we begin to free ourselves from fear, conditioning, and psychological authority. Krishnamurti says, freedom is not a reaction. Freedom is not a choice. It is rather a state of being in which there is no fear, no authority, no desire to be something. Let's think about that for a moment. How many of our decisions are truly free? And how many are instead influenced by what we've been taught, but what others expect from us, by the need to be accepted or to avoid hurting others or ourselves? For Krishnamurti, freedom begins with observation, observing ourselves without judgment, without the filter of the past. When we attentively observe what is happening within us, our thoughts, emotions, fears, we begin to see how trapped we are by mental patterns we have inherited, absorbed, or unconsciously built. A central point in his teaching is that one cannot be free as long as is seeking safety, whether emotional, spiritual, or psychological. Seeking safety means clinging to ideas, beliefs, relationships, identities, or guru, and all that creates addiction. But where there is addiction, there cannot be freedom. Krishnamurti rejected the spiritual authority. His famous statement, "Truth is a pathless land," is, in this sense, really impactful. It means that there is no method, no technique, no guru that can lead us to freedom. Each person must discover it for themselves through constant awareness and deep attention. This view can be uncomfortable because it removes all our excuses. We can no longer blame society, our families, or school. But at the same time, it's a liberating vision because it gives us back the responsibility and the power to transform our lives from within. Freedom is not a destination, but a way of living. It's a living process, present in every moment, that arises from clearly and courageously seeing what we are. It is the freedom to be fully present, without fear, without masks, without illusions. And perhaps this is the greatest revolution possible, to be what we are. This is what inspired me the most, because I believe that when one takes a spiritual path, there is a need to improve one's being, one's way of being in the world, and that this is linked to an inward path, where the aim is to remove rather than add, dissolve certain patterns, leading to our essence, removing all fears. In Theosophy, freedom of thought and tolerance toward all race, creed, sex, caste, or color is a key principle. And this is reflected in the great diversity of thinkers and modes of expressions of those who have joined and identified with this movement. For me, this is the most fundamental and inspiring element. It is certainly about going behind our little ego and being able to choose without conditioning. And so, freedom is the possibility of flying high, of reaching towards something greater, and also understanding that this greater aspect can be experienced through different elements in our lives. These elements are also practical aspects that involve experimentation, knowledge, study, service, meditation. Freedom is the ability to make a transformation in life through the integration of all these elements.
And next, we are hearing about Avinash. Avinash Lagos is a fourth-generation Scottish Punjabi from Glasgow, who's basically your friendly neighborhood wizard, with the turmeric latte in one hand and the bird chart in the other. He's the founder of the Vedic Ways, where he offers all-you-can-heal buffet of Ayurveda, Jyotisha, the Vedic astrology, Vastu Sastra, pranic healing, Reiki, Tarot, and palmistry. If it's ancient and holistic, Harvey probably already doing it with heart and humor. As an interfaith representative for the Scottish Hindu Foundation and a contributor to the Interfaith Restorative Justice, Avi is all about helping people get along, whether they're seeking enlightenment or just trying to survive a family dinner. Is deeply aligned with the three objects of the Theosophical Society, working to build bridges between faith, philosophies, and the people. When he's not consulting the stars or balancing chakras, Avi moonlights as the librarian of the Glasgow Theosophical Society, safeguarding mystical domes and helping others rediscover the magic and ancient wisdom in a very modern world. Thank you, Avinash. Now the floor is all yours.
First of all, I'm very humbled. Thank you, everybody, for having me. And that bio, sometimes I'm just like, I outdo myself because I'm just passionate. And the subject today is why am I inspired and where does Theosophy truly come into my life? Truly. First of all, the meaning of Theosophy is something that's universal. It's that brotherhood, the kinship, bringing us together, regardless where we are on this planet. I think that's the most important thing as humans, no matter where we are on our journey, where we are physically, emotionally, mentally. I find that very, very, it just feels like home. And when you feel like you know you want to go home, what better way to do it than when you've got people that you can connect to and doing the same work? So Theosophy came to me because I grew up Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, and Christian as a child. So everybody who knows me, I grew up going to Theravadan Buddhist Vihara. I was going to Gurdwara, which is a Sikh temple, because my dad's side. I would go to Catholic mass, and at the same time, I would go to the mandir. So when we talk about fostering comparative religion, philosophy, and science, within my great-grandparents and grandparents, it was always there. And at the age of 14, my mum, I would not say ever made the mistake. My mum fosters all these beautiful spiritual paths within me because she's got this spiritual leaning within her. And she gave me The Secret Doctrine when I was 14, thinking it was a Buddhist text. And ever since then, I started reading it and I thought, what is this unusual text? It has Sanskrit, it has Pali, it has Greek, it has everything. And I was like, this is very fascinating because I grew up exploring all sorts of mythologies. Spirituality was just naturally ingrained at home. So as I grew, the community aspect was always there. And I came into the Glasgow Lodge, the Annie Besant Lodge in Scotland in 2013. And even then, I still remember I got involved with the library project. And there was elements of where I was like, what do we do with this? And I came from a generation where justice has always been fascinating. If it's not in the Mahabharata, it'd be in Harry Potter, you know? So it's there, and people of all ages got together. And this building, this place, truly fostered that. And this is how I nurtured it. And when you see all the different things that I've done with Theosophy, it was about community. And this is why, if you've noticed, the word community building was there. And at the moment, being the librarian of the Theosophical Society, our lodge is going to be 125-year-old on the 6th of December this year. And cosmically, at the start of this year, 13th of January, the city that I'm in Scotland is called Glasgow. It has finally become 850-year-old. It's been chartered, so obviously it's a lot older, but there's this beautiful convergence going on. And being in Theosophy, it keeps nurturing this idea that no matter where we are in time, the writers, the people, everybody's contributing to that greater good. Because when we look at the objectives to create a universal brotherhood, as we call it, beyond caste, creed, sex, and race and everything, it's trying to not go too much and say, I am a Theosophist without actually not doing the work. And then when I'm in this building and seeing the city and the way we're fostering that community, and this is how it also happened when I went into interfaith restorative justice as well. It's trying to understand if someone's not able to speak for another, they will fill in gaps. So it's always best to show who we are. And a lot of people couldn't understand what is Theosophy, and I've been trying to dig into this, like further and further and further, and it's just so vast. It's like trying to go into a tree and you're going into the roots. And I'm actually exploring something with interfaith. And interfaith, as much as it's new, I keep hearing about it. They keep saying we've started in the 60s, we've started in the 80s, we're doing all these projects. And then when I mentioned to a lot of people, have you heard of Theosophy? It's been around since 1875. Have you seen the objectives? People then go, no, what is that? And you can see how it's permeated through everything. It's like the essence. And when someone taps into the essence, again, you could see when I'm having these conversations, they go, I really like that. And that was it. You just leave the door open, they explore the building, and they have the option to go to the library. We do different groups. And here is where my passion starts to grow. And it starts to get to the point I was like, if they did all this in the 1800s, why can we not? And this is what I have been doing, was this has become very important to me, traveling, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in June, those who will be there in Narden. Eventually I'll come to Adyar. And there was something fascinating when I connected, and it was like, as much as I'm looking at the past, I feel like they've done all the work for us already to continue to foster the important work for us as a new generation in this present moment. So there is something that I'm just in awe with, and this is why it keeps coming back to community when it comes to study groups, people, and no matter how much I'm trying to connect it, there always seems to be more to look forward to. So I think that this is why I'm inspired by Theosophy. But here's the thing, in Scotland, we're the only last lodge that's left. Edinburgh's sold and gone. London has sold and gone. So you can see that there's something tragic, but the same, it's bittersweet. And I'm just like, there's an element of revival. So it's not, this is where the institute isn't a building. So I have been traveling, I have been connecting, and I have been doing a lot of these conversations. And the one thing that I keep noticing is everybody's seeking something. And when you talk about Theosophy, all they want to know is, what is it? And when you share it with people, they start to go, I can relate to that. I know that. It's as if something subconsciously is happening. So it's good to see this idea. So I have this new project that I'm thinking of doing. My friend is already in the other room because in the library, and they're all young actors. And I'm wanting to bring this creativity back to Theosophy, especially to this lodge. And the idea is, how do we foster and bring these good ideas back? Because when I look at Annie Besant and all these books that these people have read and wrote, my question is, why can we not do it? What's stopping us? And the answer is nothing. And once you understand the foundations of what we're doing, you can see we're building only on this good work. So karmically, it feels like not only do I feel like I've come home, I actually do enjoy sharing, healing, helping. And even just now, like an hour ago, I was doing an Ayurvedic workshop. Where can you do that? The only place you can share such wisdom is under the roof of Theosophy. So I do sometimes feel like I should stop and say, is there any questions? But it depends. So I do feel like asking.
Well, actually, we come to questions afterwards.
Okay,
Okay,
that's fine.
we hear Abhinav before that.
No problem.
If you have something more to say right now.
At the moment, I'm happy to say that I'm ready to let Abhinav take over.
Okay, let's
Okay,
do
thank you.
big thank you for you. So let me talk about a little bit about Abhinav now. Abhinav Kadambi is a Sanskrit enthusiast turned to a scholar, currently pursuing his PhD in Sanskrit at the University of Madras, Chennai. While many people enjoy poetry or novels, Abhinav finds joy in ancient slokas, philosophical sutras, and the occasional intellectual rabbit hole that only classical Indian text can offer. He brings the language alive, not just as a researcher, but as someone who truly lives the spirits behind the script. In 2023, he joins the Theosophical Society at their lodge, and it didn't take long for him to become a familiar and much loved face in a community. With his quiet curiosity and a thoughtful humor, Abhinav has given talks for young Theosophists in India and been a guest on podcasts, sharing insights from his field in a way that both deeply and informed and refreshingly human. So here you go, Abhinav. The floor is yours.
Okay. Namaste. Firstly, that was not the introduction I had given to Merike to share here in public. I had only given her, I think, 2 or 3 sentences. She has managed to cook it and present it only a chef can do in that way. So, okay. Thank you for sharing all those good words. I think it's because of as she has already mentioned, being more not familiar, I would say more familial than familiar. Uh, it would be uh, more ideal for me to share my personal experiences here rather than talk something intellectually. That is why I had told Merike that I would like to talk about what I'm fascinated by uh, PS as a society as well as the literature that the society has. Frankly speaking, I have been a bookworm for a long time, and modern Western education took me to places where, at one point of time, I realized that the scientific literature was more um, helping me to find the material aspect of life, but not about anything beyond material. So I found that these people were more confident in giving answers than those who were constantly talking about philosophy, spirituality, or religion. I found that logic was only found in scientific lectures and books, and therefore I decided to uh, take a deep dive into science and technology. But later I found that at some point of time, all of us have a question. I mean, rather, one question keeps coming back to us all the time. Is this all? Who am I? So these are two questions that keep coming. And in my case, it kept coming very intensely during a time when I was trying to look for a suitable way to deal with the stresses of life. And at that point of time, I decided to uh, let go of my attachment to science and technology alone as the sole, uh, what you call, answer to the lives of, I mean, the questions of life. And I um, went back to studying from the basics. And I found that solutions are not necessarily outside. Oftentimes, the solutions are inside. People who spoke before me, there's Brother Avinash and also Nicoletta, have actually spoken about this in their own way. So in my case, I found that the answers can be found inside when you start reflecting first. And then as you go deeper into self-reflection, you will start finding answers which are only experiential in nature. And I found that this has been always very much promoted in Theosophical Society. So when I came to join TS, it was a time when I was still exploring. That is just 2 years ago, about 1.5 to 2 years ago, when I came to TS Adyar, I was trying to see if it would suit me. And I met Catalina there, and she was telling me that you can come join the School of Wisdom first, see if you like it. Then later you can choose to do things later. So I just went for the school for wisdom on Jainism. And as I started listening to the lectures and listening to the existing members, and I started seeing the library and also the bookstall and started walking down the roads, I realized that there was something which was very attractive. It was not merely some random forest with dilapidated buildings and some old people speaking about random buzzwords, which were very popular at that time. It was not necessarily only coming from the intellect. A lot of the people who I met, they were speaking from the heart. And so that attracted me. I was very intrigued. Why are they so attracted to this field or this place or this philosophy, whatever it is that they call it? And I found that there are many people who found answers to many of their questions by being associated with TS in some form. And that's when I decided to uh, become a member. And ever since then, uh, periodically during events or during some random meetings, I come to TS in person and I attend some of their events. I mean, I shouldn't say their, I should say our. So I attend our events. And I found that in the initial days when I used to come, I wanted to see it as an escape route from the hustle and bustle of urban life. But now I see that as a part of my life. It's not a place where I escape to. It's actually a place I also stay in. That's also part of my home. Uh, Not necessarily physically, but also spiritually. So I find that during my walk inside the TS in many of the roads and the avenues, I actually find one of the most elusive experiences, that is silence, whenever I go. And I think that is very deeply healing. So that is one of the primary things I like about BTS as a place. But earlier, just before me, Avinash also spoke about community in one way. So I love the fact that we have a very active and growing community where we have a relationship, very true relationship. It's not that we meet every day, we meet only occasionally. Occasionally, we message each other. And it so happens that when uh, you are very deeply centered inside, oftentimes you are bombarded with work, and nature wants us to do more and more work. So there is always something to do. And so we are not able to keep in touch. But when we do meet, when we do talk to each other, there seems to be that heart to heart connection. And finally, about the literature, I find, as Nicoletta properly mentioned, there is something about freedom which is being conveyed through these different books by different authors. So the past presidents, the past very what you call serious and sincere members of PS who have written such large books, they have not merely done an intellectual treatise, they've actually poured their experiences in the form of words. And in the initial stages, I have not been able to understand a lot of these words. Even now, I don't understand most of the literature, but at least I try to understand that it is more of an experience and I try to visualize it in my own way. The best or the most um, convenient place to start for me would be the works of Taimni, who has written a good set of books. So for me personally, because of my background from the Indian culture and the Indian society, I find Taimini's works to be more approachable for me because he uses words which I'm familiar with. That does not mean that I'm not comfortable with other works. The only thing I'm saying is this is the most comfortable ones. But I think that Taimini is a good starting point if you are an Indian who has some exposure to this set of vocabulary, because it's a very good starting point. A lot of these details are not available in the other books. The other authors do not talk about the same words. They talk about the same experiences, but they don't talk about the same words. So, for me personally, the works of Taimni are very dear because they are something which I start with. I still have not completed his works, but I have started them and I find a lot of value in it. So, on the whole, I know that I have not spoken anything intellectually because that was not my intention from the beginning. I've just shared what I felt like sharing with this family. I hope I made sense. So, yes, I stop speaking here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So let me see. So now is the questions time, questions and comments. Do we have some questions from our lovely audience? Do you have anything to, would you like to ask? Then I will just start. So from Avinash, can you please tell me, you said it is always best to show others who we are. How would we best do that?
So from my own engagement is just, if you're looking at it from the Lodge's point of view, we're just showcasing who we are. So for example, when people are just looking for somewhere to go, somewhere to explore, we just share. That's it. If anybody is curious what I'm reading, I just share it. That's it. If they're interested, that's it. I just leave it to that. Because when it comes to interfaith, when I'm talking in parliament, schools, universities, I will actually show history of it as well, so that it's not left out. Because on my behalf, this is what I see as my dharma. That if I'm involved with something really good, I'm not proselytizing it. It's not about saying we must become members, convert. It's not about that. It's just about if someone's passionate about something, without being arrogant or showing off or having this element of forcing, it will naturally come off. So I always will share people because this is where my office is or where I'm doing work. And as people come in, they feel it. So it's just, in my opinion, it's about sharing without actually enforcing it on anyone. So that's how I see it.
I totally agree what you said about we do not need to get them to become a members. It's more about that it's a choice of their own, and it should be like when I first came to listen the Theosophical lecture, they said wait until you just listen more sometime. Have the confidence that this is it. And it took me some time before I become a member, but I very much appreciated it. And it also raises some respect because who are the people who are actually staying there for longer? Because so many, like you said before, people are interested when they hear about, they can relate to that. But at the same time, if you say the brotherhood of all man, or if you say things like that, people can relate to that. But how many are ready to take the next step and actually because if you become a member, you take a vow to follow certain things, to actually start to keep that in your life. So it is good to have this attitude that we do not need you to become a member, we just need you to start thinking on those directions, and then you just give what we have. Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention about Annie Besant, and I was thinking also Abhinav was telling about the the books that have been written in the Theosophical Society, and I've been thinking also about the timing, but it's they're totally different level to I don't say different level, but Yeah. Maybe I ask this from Abhinav. Yes.
So, could you rephrase your question?
Yes. So the question is, sorry. So from my point of view, like Blavatsky had help from the masters, and I think some of the others, like presidents who have written like very good books, have also, I think, have some help, or they have already been quite evolved souls, and then they have written on that basis. So, like, what can I add? I have to be in that level to be able to add to that. Like, I think Annie Besant, Tim Boyd once brought out, Annie Besant, we know now, was not the Annie Besant who was born when he was when he was a certain age. He became that through life, is almost 90 years. She worked a lot, and like one thing after the other, he became that. Also, like the books she wrote in a later light after becoming a Theosophist. She wrote many nice articles and things before, but I think it is, I don't know if we are able to write in that, like, how can I say, level. Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Avinash had something to
You
say.
have to take away your mute thing. Yeah.
Abhinav, I don't know if you noticed this because of the subject matter about the books. So I've got a question from a lot of younger people, and this is actually quite good to speak to young theosophists, is a lot of people have asked me, are books getting written in a matter where it's relevant to this day and age? Because what puts off a lot of people is, yes, as theosophists ourselves, we respect those who have come and gone and left us work that we can read and we can always evaluate and go deeper into, and they constantly make our conscious think, if you think about it in a deeper level, so it's not just on the periphery and we're just like, okay, this is a nice book. But some people have actually asked me, I'm not saying that I want to write, but they've said, is there on a wider level other people that may start writing more that's relevant to this day and age from it, with what's happening to us ecologically, with some of the older stuff that we can interpret in the 21st century? Because as 21st century theosophists and the youth, we still have, I'm just assuming right now, we still have much more, many years ahead of us compared to the people that have written right up to their 70s, 80s, and 90s. So we are still in the youth aspect. And a lot of young people have come to the library upstairs and have said, Abby, has anybody written anything? Is there anything modern? And the only thing that I've seen is Tim Boyd, or rather Boriello slightly, just like you said, older
Pablo Sender
presence.
also.
Yes, Pablo Sender. But I'm saying, is there more? And I was like, I will ask. So this is another thing when it comes to books, because a lot of people found a lot of the older books harder to get into. And I thought, I will ask. And this was a question that I have been receiving since I've been a librarian upstairs. A lot of people find the older literature harder to like get into, should we say, to get their foot into Theosophy, because you can recommend certain titles. So I thought I'd ask Abhinav as well if there's anything you've experienced.
Yes.
Okay. So, in my personal experience, reading Theosophical literature, I have purchased so much that every one of us do. Like, we are so excited, we buy so many things, we just amass so many books and build our own personal library. But I personally think that when we read these books, only some of them will have a direct connection with our personal experience. So each individual's experience is very unique. And I would recommend that before we buy or before we settle on trying to complete one specific book, I would always recommend that you take a book and read a few pages and see if you're able to connect with the author's words. As Marike was saying, as for example, Annie Besant, in the initial stages of her life, before being a theosophist, her literature would have been more like revolutionary, something to do with rights, something to do with freedom in general, politically charged literature. But post her joining the Theosophical movement, I think she also starts going deeply inwards. And as she starts going inwards, the way her literature shows up is very different. Now it's no longer something that she keeps talking from the intellect. Now it's more from the heart as well. So she's experiencing something and she's trying to put it into words. So that is why it is very beautiful. So the initial works, yes, it's more like an encyclopedia. It tells us about something. It's a journalistic piece. It's more of an intellectual research article, an academic article, or an academic work. But later we see her works after she gets into theosophy. It's more from the feeling, it's more from what she's experiencing. Similarly, when we as an audience go to the bookstore, the TS bookstore, anywhere, we oftentimes are attracted to the title of the work and we have heard the name of the author somewhere. And because maybe something like maybe Tim Boyd mentioned some author's name, so we want to read that book because we are inspired. But I personally have found that it doesn't work for me personally. So what I have done is I have tried to see if the work talks to me, if the pages, at least two or three of them, if they're able to connect with what I do regularly. Say, for example, I'm already practicing Zen meditation. If I take a few books and see that the author is talking about some experience which is relevant to me, so there are so many books, at least in DS literature, where there is something related to Zen meditation, not necessarily directly, something related at least. So the moment I see some connection, I feel that maybe this will make sense. And then I start reading, then it will connect with me better and I can transform much better. Instead, if I choose a work which is not directly talking my vocabulary or my experience, then I see that it is more like I'm learning the language, I'm also learning the vocabulary, I'm also learning the experience, which is a very difficult thing to do. So when we even if it is any other material science, for example, if I'm going to study a paper, an academic journal article on material science, I will usually not choose something which is not relevant to me directly. So if I want to learn something about magnesium, I would first know something about magnesium before going there. So then I start reading a little bit. So once I know the vocabulary a little bit, once I have some experience with it, then I study something new. It stays better. It connects with me much better. So similarly, if I want to study something, say I want to read about Hindu philosophy, something to do with philosophy. So I don't have any connection with, say, Advaita Vedanta, if I don't have any connection with Vedanta, if I jump into a text on Vedanta, I will not understand anything because I'm jumping into the deep end of the pool. So the best thing that I would always recommend is if you already have experience with some spiritual practice, or if you already have experience with some uh, culture that you are raised in, some kind of a family background or your personal schooling. So in school they taught you something, or maybe you learned something in college, or you went on a summer break and learned something somewhere in some random camp and you got inspired into spirituality. Start there. Just start with that word or that experience. Then it will be more easy for you to connect with it. Just reading random books, whatever comes your way, will actually not serve the purpose because you're not constructing anything that will be useful in the long term. The initial stage, if you're even building a library, it is always recommended that you first decide what topics you're going to build the library on. So if the library is going to be focused on spirituality or religion, now go deeper. It should not be only some haphazard set of books. So in the same shelf, you will have Christianity, Islam, and everything. It will not make sense to the reader. So it's more interesting to first start something generic, something that is relevant to your experience, then go deeper, and then you will see that it will make more sense to you. So there is no question of relevance for the modern audience or the older audience. The question is about how is it relevant to you personally, because there's a huge range, there's a huge spectrum of literature which we have in TS. So choosing just some random 10 books and saying, no, I can't understand, actually, that defeats the purpose. My personal opinion. I hope I have not offended anyone from my side.
Uh, Actually, Avi and Abhinav, if I may add, I came across something truly wonderful recently in this regard, like, in terms of contemporizing or making things very personal. Because there are so many books, even if you pick up one author, there's like 20, 30 books, hundreds of talks. So the example was, I'm sure Kiran might be aware of this. So what a lot of universities are doing lately, or research scholars, people who have labs and research labs, they have started using custom GPTs, and it's not an expensive thing. It's probably $300, $400 a month, and what they do is, for example, there's this one researcher whose work I was inspired by, but I'm not a person of sciences. I'm just curious about his work. But what his website has now is a personalized GPT of all of his work, which is trained by all his books are put into it, all his papers are put into it, all his talks that he ever gave, and that's also not a complicated process right now. It's very simple to train a GPT. So I think what happens now is it becomes so personalized to a point that, also I feel right now it all comes down to the questions. Like, if we set out to read or learn something, I don't think there's any end. It's all about what are the questions we are going to ask in this world of AI and everything. So, for example, right now I feel if if TS has a custom GPT like that, like, wherein you put all Madam Blavatsky's books or all the authors and you train it enough, so then somebody like me, when I start communicating with that GPT, I'm communicating at my level, I'm entering at my level. Those questions are mine. So for example, for that researcher's website, if there's a 10-year-old grade one girl or boy who's interested in his work, their questions are from their level, and the answers and the GPT, somehow it's very personalized, so that uh, 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 so all the work of this Nobel winning researcher is now, the responses are tailor made to that, 10-year-old boy or girl or something like that. And I thought it was really interesting because, like I said, if we start reading and reaching out, there is so much, and we don't even know what to ask or what to read or something like that. So I think in 2025, uh, something that, I mean, every normal university is doing it nowadays. So it's a very simple thing, and I'm sure for TS as a whole, for all the lodges combined, if they work on something like this, I think it will be incredible. Then people can just go on to the website. Uh, 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 they can just find their own entry point into what TS is, and they get answers that are communicating directly with them. So yeah, I just wanted to.
Thank you so much, Harry. Thank you. I just had thought about that. What something that Abhinav mentioned before, that he can really feel that all those books written by our last presidents are not just intellectual works, that they have put their hearts into it. And like, I very much love how easy ChatGPT and AI is making the works and the text, but at the same time, if it's only by that, I feel like sometimes I read the text and I feel like something is missing. But if somebody is written a letter or a thing on their own, and I really put a lot of thought into it, you can feel it is different. Now I guess I should do more investigation on it, but I think also AI is like, this is my personal thing. It might be not that, but in reality, but I think the AI is like pushing us in a one direction. So we will come back on this direction. What Abhinav was selling, it's not purely intellectual. It's from the heart, and I think the next generation is more about how to discover to live more from the heart, because this is like what I very much feel every time, like you also said, that if we meet, it's heart to heart connection with the young theosophist, and this is our spiritual home here, and yeah, so those are my thoughts. What do you think?
No, but also, Mary Kay, I think I totally understand what you're saying, like, in terms of the personal feeling that, when you're reading, when you pick up a book by Madame Curie and you're reading her journals, or you're reading things, directly from Einstein's journals or something. But again, I personally don't feel that everybody might be so affected to that feeling, that, that nostalgia, or the feeling that there is a direct human connection or something like that. For example, for me, I'm very much okay. In fact, for me, it is very convenient when I read some of these journals from, of work from ChatGPT, because at the end of the day, I'm just there to find answers for my questions, and yes, I do agree. There is, uh, you know, uh, uh, I guess people might have different views on this, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, uh, we have already entered that world where, we are exposed to these things. It's easy and it's convenient. So I personally feel, at some point, I don't think there'll be a difference in general, like in a large scale. I don't think there'll be a difference between people are reading something through AI or directly from that person's book. Because
What other-
again,
Yeah.
Mary Kay, because again, if we just take the example of Madame Blavatsky's secret doctrine, I have never met Madame Blavatsky. I have never spoken to Madame Blavatsky. And so the only two options I have are either read her raw, dense book that is directly written by her, or rest everything is just an interpretation. It's either some other author or some other theosophist or some other biographer or something. So for me, it's either directly from Madame Blavatsky's book, or the rest all is basically a derivative interpretation. So I think AI is really wonderful in terms of, yes, if somebody is very affected and attached by reading it directly from Madame Blavatsky's secret doctrine, I think that's wonderful. But otherwise, I think AI is pretty much the same in terms of, are you getting it from AI or some other biographer or some other interpreter or some other, and I think AI does a wonderful job, like Abhinav or Avi has brought up. Uh, it's able to communicate in the same level as the questions are.
Yes.
I think that is game changing, because, again, like I said, a lot of times, I'm using ChatGPT to understand, certain theosophical or, Jiddu Krishnamurti or things like that. So yeah, I think the best. Yes, I wish I could directly pick up a JK book and read and immediately understand it, but that doesn't happen.
But can I add just one more comment before I give the word to Abhinav? Somebody says once, Madame Blavatsky wrote Secret Doctrine on purpose, difficult, so it wouldn't come easily. So we have to think. If we just read it, we will just forget it. But if we have to use our brain to understand what he wanted to say by that now, then we will get it more deeply. I don't know. This is like one aspect, but please, Abhinav.
Yes, that's precisely what I wanted to share. This is about something that we see in cognitive sciences and psychology that is called the IKEA effect. You can search for this on Google. IKEA is the name of this furniture company which offers you to take up these uh, building blocks for each furniture piece, and you can build it at home wherever you can. In the same way, this is applicable to intellectual topics as well as spiritual experiences. When you work with it on your own, break your head for a few days and a few weeks or a few months to understand something, oftentimes that will stay with you forever. So, this is something that I personally have experienced. So when I listen to a teacher, the teacher gives the experience from their perspective, or a senior student gives their perspective. But oftentimes, when I sit with the knowledge or the wisdom myself or the experience myself, and I try to do the same practice on my own, I see that whatever I gain from that activity stays with me forever. It can never leave me. I can give them the guidance. If somebody asks me how to do it, I can share. But the experience will never leave me. But if I read it from somewhere ready-made, I usually forget. This is only my personal experience. Perhaps IKEA effect does not apply for everyone. I mean, of course, because psychology and cognitive science also uses normal distribution curves for finalizing what effect to be called what. So in this case, perhaps maybe for Hari, it's not applicable directly. Maybe something else might work for her. Yeah.
No, just quickly, I wanted to add, I mean, what I intended to say was, of course, like, I come from the point of view that, for example, if I'm looking for a question of a researcher or a scientist, and if I'm getting the answer, that's it. That's basically, the means justifies the end or whatever. Also, I would quote Jiddu Krishnamurti on it. He often said, the idea that an effort is needed to get somewhere, or an effort is needed to understand something, or there's a distance that you have to travel, so that it stays with you for long or something. He always spoke against it, wherein he often so yeah, I think for me, I just feel that something like, we are in 2025, and like brother Avinash brought up the point wherein there are people coming up to him saying, is there a contemporary approach, point of entry, into the teachings of theosophy? Do I go to this author, or do I go to that author, or do I go to somebody? I again, I personally feel, yes, I do agree that but yeah, I think something like a GPT today's world, I think it can be so individualized. But yeah, I feel effort. I feel the idea that an effort is needed for something to stay with you doesn't happen. So, but yeah, I just putting.
Please, Abhinav.
I think with what you said there about JK around, like as long as you see, like if you want, like if you have to put an effort to get to somewhere, and that's probably the path that he's not, a big fan of. But then what he is implying there is non-duality, and this is what Eckhart Tolle would also mention in his writings. As long as you see the present moment as a means to getting somewhere, you've lost it, right? So it's all about presence. Now we are like what Abhinav earlier mentioned, that we have to realize, when if you're listening to a teacher or a realized being, you have to understand as to where they're coming from. So for JK, of course, he had crossed the river on the other side, and of course, he was in no need of any tool. He was, totally in tune with awareness and consciousness, and therefore, for him, it was something that was obsolete, not needed anymore. Are we in the same boat? I mean, that's a question that's for each one of us to kind of contemplate on. So that's yeah. But I think when it comes to all these AI chat models, I think it just comes down to how we prompt them. I mean, of course, there's no harm in using them. We can use them to strategize. For example, if you want to explore, some TS author's work and you don't really know where to get started from, probably, if you have the books in, EPUB or PDF formats or whatever, you can just throw them in ChatGPT and perhaps see what's the best place, to get started, so that you have a clear map. You can't fully rely on the ChatGPT interpretations because they are a function of your prompts. So it really depends. The quality of output that you get from ChatGPT, it directly depends on the quality of your prompts. So if your prompts are not whole and well-rounded, then you're not likely to get a complete picture, and you will always miss something. And it is very likely that ChatGPT will oversimplify something that isn't meant to. So that's something that we need to be aware of. I mean, AI models, I'm not like pro or against them, but it all comes down to how we use them and how we instruct them. And they're useful, of course. It does help in getting a lot of clarity. And of course, but the other thing is that it's not a human being. It doesn't really know what it feels like to be, in the state of meditation. Of course, it will try and describe things to you, but it will try and describe those based on, again, the words of other people. And the thing is, as long as there are words, it just means that it's an intellectualized form of the feeling itself. It is not the feeling in itself. That is a description, the description, you know. So it's the description of the feeling. And there is always going to be that disconnect. Even if I have a wonderful experience and I try to put it in words with you guys, there will always be a little gap. So it's a corruption. It is always some form of corruption that's involved. I mean, because the experience in itself can never be fully expressed through words. It can only be felt. So that's the thing. I mean, but this has always been like a long kind of critique. Maybe is a strong word, but with most TS lecturers, that's always been the case. They are highly intellectualized, and therefore a person, if he, you know, is a more of an emotional temperament and wants to have the experiential you know, ways of absorbing these truths, then in that case, of course, they will always feel some kind of an intellect, and like, you know, they'll feel like a disconnect. I mean, because it's not really suiting them, and that's that. I totally agree with what Abhinav said there at the start. You have to see if it's speaking to you. That's what he meant. If it's really, you know, your type, because there's no right or wrong, you know. Like sometimes even the, you know, the least popular TS authors can be the best ones for you, because it doesn't really matter, because it's speaking to you, and that is the key, I guess. I'm sorry, that was very long, but anyway.
No, thank you very much. I think it was very nice. Avinav, please.
Thank you, Kiran. That was very good. That was well put. I also want to add one important idea that we have become very, what to call, normalized with. I think we're very much habituated to one kind of an idea. That is, we are looking at sources of wisdom as also providing us services. So when you look at a service provider, it is a very different kind of a relationship we have with a service provider. It's very transactional in nature. So I give you something, you give me back something, because that's your job. So when you look at a book also that way, or when you look at the author of a book in the same way, I think it actually belittles the entire scope of what is possible when you look at a book. Because a book is not merely going to be in a certain form, or what is going to be said in a book is not fixed to the way it is interpreted by one reader. If, say, for example, we are 8 of us in this meeting directly in the Zoom call, if each of us reads the same paragraph, we will have a different interpretation. So this is basically based on our experiences, our background, our philosophical, economical, spiritual, or whatever it is, whatever dimension you consider. So in the same way, when you look at one book which is written by one author, say Annie Besant has written, and if each of us reads it, we will have different interpretations of it. When we look at it as a service provider, we are trying to reduce it to only one kind of an output. And I think what we can apply for a service provider in the real world cannot be directly applicable for literature itself, especially when it comes to spiritual religious literature from the perspective of theosophy. So that is, I think, in a way, a limitation that is causing us to uh, stop ourselves from looking at the scope of what this literature can do to us. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I hope I said something which you can understand. Yes.
Thank you so much. Also, Fatima has already have long time hands up, please, Fatima. You're still unmuted. Muted.
Sorry, no, it's in the same line of the discussion, because it was in regards of Harry comment, and then, well, everything that Kiran said and Abhinav are totally, thank you, totally for sharing this, I totally align. And also what I wanted to share are two things. One from Pablo Sender, once in a talk, online talk, had the opportunity to ask him. It was a talk about talking about the traumas, in a sense. And so basically my question was in regards of, a therapy, how was a theosophist approach to therapy? And he said, well, therapy can help, especially when you have whatever this degree. But the question is that there are many things, especially that Theosophy believes that you ask the question, and by making this work we are talking all this afternoon about the purification and the cleanliness, like there is a certain state of mind also in which things are revealed to you. And the thing is that sometimes when you just are dependent on therapies, then you are always going, and when they give you an answer, then something inside of you stops that inner research because you already got it. Instead of just throwing the question and then working on putting yourself on a situation. So, on a sense, this can be applied when reading a book, for example, like the Secret Doctrine. So there is a certain sentence, and this sentence, it's something that you need to try to go through it in another state of mind, we can say. You try to concentrate, to reflect on these ideas, to maybe understand which are the questions, you have among that. This kind of approach to it in a much more exploring, researchful than getting an immediate answer from outside, no? So yeah, it's like a different kind of exercise. I don't say that is not useful. And for example, I used it a lot for Bhagavad Gita, a lot of interpretations. And I used also internet to look for this, because for me, maybe it's much more, and especially because there is translations from Sanskrit, no? So sometimes to see different translations helps me better to see a bigger picture of the thing. But basically, I mean, I say it's useful, but I just say that there is this other exercise where you put yourself in a more contemplative. And in regards with Krishnamurti, I think when he's saying to be effortless, I mean, I'm going to make a little of a joke, but just to a full talk of Krishnamurti of 2 hours requires a certain type of, call it effort, So what I try to say is that he's saying about not forcing anything, not imposing in ourselves any dogma, any restriction, talking about Nicoletta, always from the freedom, no? But that doesn't mean at all that, for me, that he's not inviting us to work towards a contemplative mind. And he's all the time like, come on, now, concentrate on this idea, let's explore together. So he's inviting you, but he's not telling you, but he's bringing us, when we are with him, to a state of mind where we are not thinking on that, we are not doing that. So somehow exactly what we are doing with the Krishnamurti classes is on a way where you alone, for example, can try to do a text like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want a quick comment here about the Krishnamurti I loved. Today I saw one of his lecture, and I loved how again and again he said, please, let's think together on this. You're an intelligent audience. Let's try to work it out. And then one point he asked, are you tired? Listen, you don't have to think if you're too tired, but try to understand. I like how he's invited. I'm thinking we should use it more in our Theosophical lectures and every lectures to invite people to think together, to have this questioning and thinking, like how, like not like you're composing a beautiful text and just reading it out, but to think with them together. I very much love this aspect about him. But we have many now people wanting to add. Actually,
No, Marika, I just quickly wanted to add, super quickly. So, I brought that up because, I still remember, I think for some reason we have this perception that if we are using an AI to communicate with something, we are putting in a lesser effort or something. So just an example, Steve Jobs, said this, which I think is incredible. He once said, Socrates was the teacher of Alexander. He wrote all these books and all of that. He said over 2,500 years, there's so many people who came with various interpretations and all of that. but nobody exactly knew Socrates. Nobody exactly know what he has written. So he said, Steve Jobs said, what if in the next 20, 30 years, we'll have a model which will train with everything that only Socrates has written. Now then, when you talk to that model, you're talking to Socrates. There is no human something which is derivative or human understanding or something like that. And I still feel even when you're interacting with a GPT that is trained with a model, again, I'm just giving an example. If we train a model with all of Madame Blavatsky's work, I'm sitting there and directly talking with Madame Blavatsky. That's the closest it could get for me to ask the most personal questions or everything. And that model has nobody else. That model has no Pablo Senders interpretation I understand everybody's interpretation has value to it, but again, this is what I feel. For example, that very example of that Nobel Prize winning researcher, he's not accessible to me. The only way and I can understand his work is either by reading his, somebody else's books on him or YouTube videos. But now there is this model with no human hand in it that knows everything about what that author has written. Now I can sit here and I can just open his website and I can ask the silliest questions or the questions that come to my mind, and the model answers it as if that Nobel Prize winning scientist would have answered. And I understand there's this value given to that nostalgia of taking something directly from the person. But again, I really feel this should at least be given a consideration, because I think it would be a great value to our website or something like that. People who are coming new into the society, and things like that.
I totally agree with you. It will be really, really interesting. And actually, I would be interesting playing also with GPT, who has all the. But I also want to hear what Avinash is thinking about it, because he's one of our speakers. What do you think about? Because you was the one who actually raised this thought that. People are coming and they are asking, have we written something, or can we have something more contemporary? So Harry is proposing right now GPT interpretations of our old good works, ancient
Okay,
wisdom.
not interpretations, directly talking to Madame Blavatsky.
Okay. What do you think about that?
I don't know how I feel about that, because the ecological value to that, it's taking up so much. AI may be the future, but then as humans, we adapt. Do we really? I don't know. I appreciate what everybody's saying, but again, a lot of these ancient traditions and wisdoms, we have to look inwards. It's good that we're seeking the external validation of these teachers, but like I've got my own guru, and my Guruji's taught me that the Shishya has to be the Guru 1.2. And they said, once my work is gone, you cannot be me. I am only the Guru, I am only your light. You are not me. Your karma, your reason that you're here is to go inwards to find yourself. So Chat GPT, to me, like, it might be great to have all the interpretations amalgamated, but I don't think it's going to be that individual. It's only going to be a relay, like a mathematical, like 1 + 1 is always going to be 2. But like if someone, like if I met Blavatsky, and I know as a medium, I can actually feel things, and I'm not trying to make claims, but I'm actually born in Scotland, and I'm reclaiming, not reconstructing my culture. And what I found really fascinating was I actually will call her Mem Sahib. I'll talk to her in some weird Stratton Hindi. And I've always wondered, I was like, if she met me, she would not talk to me like the way she speaks in the books. She'd be like, okay, who are you? What are you? And I think all of us have this individual spark, what we call Atma to Parmata. And I think when we create these sparks, it's like an ignition, it's like a chingar, as you'd want to call it, big spark, things are going to happen. And I think even she would be like, whoa, what just happened? Who are you? Because like what has to happen with the columns, as you know, with the controversy with SPR and all that, if someone actually stood up for her, like the way she had to leave India and then she got pneumonia and died in London, I go to London all the time, and if she became my best friend, I think she'd have been like, I'm getting my visa, let's go back to India. I think one person can make a big difference, just like the same way that I have reached out to this youth forum. Gary Kidgel is the secretary of Scotland, and he's like, Abby, you've been involved for so long, you're so young. You need to meet people your own age. Everybody you're meeting are like 40 years plus than you. So going back to AI, I don't think it's personal enough because it will only give you a formula, and then like anything, it's up to you what you do with it, good, bad, indifferent. It is not going to be that Atma or that being, not even their thought. So I really appreciate Harry's modern concept of we need this. I'm not against technology, but is it going to be that person? And this is where it's coming from my heart. No, because if I had to put all my work into Chat GPT and then someone brought that to me and said that's you, I'd be like, that's not me because I don't think like that. So I don't know personally if that's me. This is why, because I work on a personal level. Again, I work with community. I work with humans, not robots. And I've got a lot of people that are Gen Z. I don't know if anybody's Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They are so smart, but they grew up with technology. I'm a millennial. I'm the last generation that grew up and saw the internet become what it is. So I have a lot of younger people coming to me in their teens and 20s. I'm now in my mid-30s, and they're asking me, they're going, Avi, you know all this stuff. You came from a time where there was no internet. I came from dial-up, and I said, yeah, this is how we work. And I actually talk as a human. And it's easier for a kid to come up to me, right? And then go, oh, I chat GPT that. And then I check, there is actual mistakes. And then I'm like, that's not like what it says. So it's great to create these formulas, but as humans, we've got chemicals, we have all these emotions and things like you can then go down. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and you can talk about the dhatus, which is the bodily tissues. You can talk about all the chemicals and all the minerals in us. But is that really me? No. Is Chat GPT me? No. So I will always go back, and this is why I'm the librarian as well, because like the books, they are people, but I'm also a person talking to another individual. And like Abhinav has actually said, and a lot of even Kiran and yourself, Harry, everybody said, we really need to get to the heart of it. And I think the heart of it in a digital age is communication as humans. And that's why I go back to what made me become a theosophist is it's that spark inside us that's divine, but also mundane that makes us do the work. Like you said, Marike, as my sister, you said, Blavatsky said, I did not write an easy book. She's intellectual. She could have easily just wrote a manual. It was like, here you go for the Victorians. Here's for the idiot guide. I don't think we're here for that. I think what we're here is to push. We're meant to do the hard work. We're meant to go through experiences that make us change. Because if it was, then we'd be like tamas, the gunas would be like very inert, very lazy. We need to have that rajas. We need to have that fire. We need to, and then we get to the sattvic state. And then we go, with a clear mind, we're able to think together. So do I personally think AI is the future? No. The same way that telephones were great, people had telegrams, now we have iPhones. We adapt. I don't think it's going to make us any different. If anything, I think it will just make us go, okay, we've got another tool. We're too advanced. AI is not advanced, we're advanced. That's my opinion. That's why I love books. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Well, I
That was
think this kind of
Yeah.
opens again the debate around, certain things of matter that we very much indulge in, but we always question as to whether, that's the right thing or not. Like, for instance, is money good or bad? That's a question again. Is, technology good or bad again? So at the end of the day, it really comes down to how we relate to it, isn't how we make use of it. Of course, ChatGPT, like what you said, it will just end up in us constantly outsourcing our own faculties, our own abilities to think deeply, to contemplate, and we're just outsourcing all of that to a chatbot, and therefore we're not really exercising our own critical thinking abilities and our own we're not putting maybe a lot of effort into meditation and trying to understand these teachings experientially rather than just getting an intellectual answer. Okay, then I don't really need to do the hard work there. But then as we all know, easy come, easy go. So going back to a point that Abhinav made like a few minutes ago, like experientially what stays with you will not go away. ChatGPT, I'm sure we all have hundreds of conversations every month with ChatGPT. How many of those do we really remember? So it really goes down to that. So if you really have an experiential connection with a source material, it doesn't matter if it's ChatGPT or the raw book itself, But if you've put in the hard work to really understand that at a very deep level, then of course it will stay in your consciousness for much longer than what a fleeting conversation on ChatGPT would be like. You just, because it's more like intellectual stimulation, a dopamine spike, and once it's gone, you know what the answer is, you're like, whatever, but you don't really remember that so much. So that's the thing. I mean, from Guru 1.2, maybe ChatGPT 1.2 might give us a better insight, but can't really, replace the inner work that really needs in order to fully imbibe these teachings. And I think that is what a spiritual journey is about. It's not just about the intellectual stimulation. In my humble opinion, all this intellectual stimulation is just tools for the mind. It's the mind that is restless. It's the mind that wants this answer. The soul, the you, on a deeper level already knows it, but the mind is restless. So it needs some framework to stick onto. It needs some solid, grounding. It would need a mantra sometimes, or a certain technique of meditation, or a certain breath work. But it's constantly needs something. Sometimes it's purely on the intellectual front. So these are all, the things for the mind. So inner work cannot be replaced by AI. Yes, you can try meditating using brainwaves, but you will not really have the same kind of reflections as you would otherwise have when you are meditating for yourself. And going back to Hari's point long back about Socrates in a model that will speak to you just like how a particular scientist or Socrates would. The thing is, if you have enough material, now I'm really getting into the technical bits. If you have enough material about this person, how this person used to talk, and you have recordings and stuff like that, yeah, maybe in that case, that's a possibility. Otherwise, if you use an AI model and if you ask the model to strictly stick to a certain book or content that you've provided, and if your questions are more from an experiential point of view, so you are asking for an interpretation anyway, but maybe not everything is directly or explicitly mentioned in the material that you provided. A lot of it is implied. And when there is anything that's implied, it opens a big door for interpretation. Now, how do AI models, interpret? They will use parallel material that is already fed in their repositories. So it's not going to be that perfect way of, getting an answer from that particular being at the time. So there are limitations, I would say, but I could be wrong. I could be, way off the mark, but just thought of mentioning that. Anyway, long reply again. Sorry, guys.
No, this was a very good addition. Thank you, Kiran. I think the same way. Abhinav, do you have anything to add to that? About the AI and the ideas that how it is more limited if we ask like a personal question of like experience, and even if you put every book and every biography of a person there, she or he have ever written, that I cannot answer everything.
I would like to bring to the attention of everyone here one passing phrase which Avinash used a few minutes ago. He spoke about ecological impact. So if you have recently observed that globally there was a trend on social media to convert the photographs into an animated style, that is the Ghiblification of images. So if you look at the ecological impact of it, the servers which were involved in the conversion of the image to an animated style required so many liters of water for so much amount of time for cooling down the server. So if everybody were to do this Ghiblification, the entire servers would fall down because the power supply would not be sufficient. Everything would burn and melt. So that was mentioned, and that is why what this AI server did was they did not give access to that Ghiblification service to everybody at the same time. So they did it in batches. So that was done globally. They did not know how it would be received. And so now we know that we cannot release all these services to everybody at the same time. So similarly, if we were to consider this as a real world experience of how AI also has its ecological impact, then we can also understand that we need not depend on AI for everything that we have regarding uh, doubts or clarifications about some idea, not necessarily theosophical literature, but any literature. So I think we need to take a middle path which is more sustainable in nature, where for some basic ideas where we are unable to find someone who can clarify very deeply, we may consider artificial intelligence as a suitable support or assistant. But beyond that, I do not know if we can go deep into it and keep asking so many questions about advanced theories and concepts, because that can only mean that you are causing more harm to the ecology, which again goes against the principles of non-violence, which we are expected to practice if we want to really go deeper into our what you call nature. To go closer to our nature, it is expected that we reduce non-violence. Sorry, it's a reduce violence, not reduce non-violence, reduce violence. So obviously, in that perspective, I think Avinash only mentioned it in passing, but I think we should consider that also.
Thank you so much.
Vignesh, any closing comments?
Yeah, I think whatever I wanted to say, much of that Kiran has already said, in particular Kiran and Avinash. But I would just like to say I'm truly horrified by the idea, sir, your idea of having a HPV bot or something. I don't know what you're planning, but can you imagine training a bot, say, on purely on text messages from Hari, right? Do you really think that would be an accurate, depiction, or condensation of what you are as I think if you think about it, you'll realize, so what you are in real life talking to you is something completely different from what you say in an article or whatever, in a talk, or on your text. So yeah, that's I would it's okay as an interesting experiment, probably to maybe increase some interest in subjects in theosophy, or uh, uh, yeah, just to kind of reel people in a little bit, but to have that as to have a chatbot replace books is truly a horrifying thought. I really hope we don't even think of attempting that. But yeah, I hope I hope that didn't offend you, sir.
Oh, no, not at all. I always believe, again, like you said, I personally believe it's ideally going to be a mixture of both of those things. So the books are going to be there, the teachers are going to be there, the people who are doing the talks and lectures are going to be there, but there is also this additional resource. It's just a tool. For example, that Nobel Prize winning scientist, in his website, it's a different page which is titled as an extra resources or an extra tool kind of a thing. So he is still there. He's still writing his book. He's still giving his talks. The lab is still doing the physical work. This is just an extra accessory, like, which could be of an additional resource kind of.
But the thing is, if there's something essential point that I will tell that this is how would he talk, but he actually is not agreeing it, then it's like it's complicated.
I have tried this. I have tried to. So I have written like pieces of text, and I've had AI try to change the tone to that of a particular author, or even a couple of living people that I'm sure there's enough material online to try and model, try and model their tone of voice or the way they write. It doesn't work. It's not even close. So I would be, if I were HPP, I would be truly, turning in my grave, or whatever. So it's interesting. It's an interesting experiment, but I would not try and look for answers in that sense, hoping that whatever ChatGPT spews is something that the actual person might have. I would not really believe that, and I would actively discourage it, actually, if people try that. Go on.
No, I would actually also like to hear Chris, because he's the one who haven't spoken here yet.
I'll go after him. Go for it, Chris.
Okay. Well, I'd like to keep an open mind regarding the artificial intelligence. So we don't know until we try. However, based on my experience, because I work in the healthcare industry in a health insurance company, so there had been several attempts, I think 3 times already, wherein they're trying to train AI to do the decision making of the nurses. So what happens is that it's not always accurate. So the AI can actually summarize the medical condition of the patient, but the decision doesn't necessarily match that of the nurse, because I think there's a human factor that you need to consider. It's not everything is textbook material. Not everything is just mental. It's not everything 1 + 1 = 2. So if because we all of the what we mentioned is just our opinions and our conjectures of what might actually happen if we try to train AI for what would Blavatsky or what would the Mahatmas say or do. But if in case we did try, based on my experience working with AI in the healthcare industry, I think we can use it to summarize a book. Like if there's like a chapter in the secret doctrine that we're having difficulty figuring out, maybe we can have like AI summarize it. But I don't think that we can ask it to generate insights for us, because some of the insights based on our teachings, they're not from the physical plane. Some of them are generated on higher planes, which the AI might not have access to. It may have access to the internet, but it might not have access to the Mahat or to the universal mind. Or at least not yet. We don't know what the future will have.
Might not have. Sometimes I'm thinking, like, may the masters somehow help to generate the answers? Like, I'm just actually thinking it, because they're doing so much. Like, they are like writing letters to, like, that will like materialize. I think it's much more easy if somebody is asking some questions in AI and they little bit modify it before it. This is my thinking. Like,
so it's like I'm Mahatma software.
no, but they do it secretly. They don't put their names behind it. It's just to influence us softly. Or maybe there's students. I don't know if it's true, but if it would be possible, then I think they would use this tool. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I personally.
I was reading somewhere.
Wait,
that.
Okay, yeah, Harry, please.
I was reading somewhere. It's funny, it said that the next incarnation of whoever, the next whoever is coming to liberate humanity, that could be an AI model. I was just reading it. It's the 10th avatar of Vishnu. It would
Was
be
it generated by ChatGPT? What you were reading?
ChatGPT. Well, look, I mean, we all at some level, and I'm sure we all staunchly believe in the path being a pathless one, right? So for example, I mean, if it's helping Hari or if it's helping anyone in order to kind of propel their spiritual journey on, so be it. It's like, but I wouldn't really dare to go to an extent to propose it as a universal template for each one of us. But if it's working for a few of us, and by all means, they should do it. They should make good use of it. It really depends. But going forward in the future, with AI in general, whether you use it for spirituality or you use it for your professional work, that all comes down to our critical thinking abilities. And I think that is just going to be one of the most important skills down the line, because if we are unable to really, critically think and assess the responses from these AI models, we are really doomed, because it's just getting dumber and dumber in that case, because we're simply taking it at face value without really questioning it back. So you should really dig deeper, and you should also kind of, see what ChatGPT knows and how it knows what it knows, where it is coming from, and that kind of stuff. And sometimes it just makes up things. For example, I've been in some casual conversations with ChatGPT and just asking it to propose numbers about something that I knew kind of there wouldn't be any survey on as such at the global level, and it started making up numbers, and I'm like, I just went like, dude, you just made up those numbers, didn't you? You're like, yeah, you got me. so I mean, it does make up things sometimes. So you really have to be
It's
careful.
honest though. It's honest. You have to give it that.
Only if you question.
If you ask, yeah,
Only
you have
if you
to probe.
corner it. And that's the thing. That's the thing. I mean, by all means, I mean, there's nothing wrong in using it. But if it's helping you, if it's making it more interesting for you to be on your spiritual track, so be it.
Do we have some last comments from our lovely talkers, like presenters today, Avinash and Abhinav? Do you have anything to add for the finishing?
Well, I just want to say thank you, and I'm hopefully wanting to see everyone in person and not on an AI model. So it's been very interesting. I don't want to see everybody technologically, so hopefully I see you in India or Amsterdam. So this is my only final comment is I'm looking forward to that. Yes, I'm not averse to technology. It makes so much beauty and it allows us to connect like we are. And the one thing it's done is it's allowed us to feel isolated, but in the same way not. So it's an interesting contradiction of how we can use it. Like, yes, we are on our own. Like, I'm looking at a screen, but when you go into the mental sphere, there's something that I would say it gives us strength and hope if we use it correctly. It's still a tool. And now that I've seen yous, I know yous are real. Yous are part of reality. It's not some virtual reality. And I just want to say thank you for everybody that's doing this work, because it allows me to go, yes, I'm a part of something greater. And this tool has allowed me to see everybody in real time. So I just want to say thank you for having me. And I look forward to having more conversations with my brothers and sisters on many levels. So thank you for all of you on all different time zones. So thank you for having me. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for you.
Avinash, I'm just across the pond in Dublin, by the way. So if you ever happen to be around, not too far from where you are. So yeah, but I mean, that was an interesting point there. Yeah, thank you very much.
Now that you say it, you do look familiar, a little bit similar to each other.
Who?
What?
You do
Kiran
look
and Avinash?
No, they don't. What?
Thanks very much, Avinash. That was my life's biggest dilemma, but you just solved it in this.
I think I found a long lost cousin then, if that's happening.
Yeah, perhaps.
There you go. Who knows?
Yes.
Perhaps.
But Kiran, you're growing your hair out, is it? Nice
Yeah,
look.
no, I'm not. Well, look, the thing is that I was always used to having hair longer than usual. But yeah, but I was keeping them short for a while. But yeah, but anyway, they're getting much more wavy and curly. I think it's my PhD manifesting itself in different directions. That's the state of my mind, essentially chaotic.
The brain pushes them out to have.
Yeah. That's the thing.
You know, Nico was just texting me. She was like, how was my talk and what's happening? I was like, we are still discussing about your talk. And she got very nervous and she's like, I hope it went.
We did discuss a little bit about Krishnamurti. And I really liked how we had talks and how actually it goes around and it find like a important local point, and I like how these things was put together. But now I can see Fatima has something else to add. Yes, please.
Yes, just wanted to say that it was an amazing conversation, and somehow it went organically as it went, but somehow we didn't. We mentioned a little Krishnamurti, a little about the freedom, but I just wanted to say thank you to all the speakers. It was really nice sharing. Thank you very much. And to Nicoletta also, send you a very big hug. Thank you. And it was an amazing sharing. It really resonated with all the idea of the freedom. And to be honest, it's not something which is so common to hear this approach and to use this word. And I really liked it so much. And also in your idea of how to start that inner freedom, and how your outer work and your inner work, and how you're bridging everything, and your search, and well, was very, 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 very enriching. So I want to thank you also very much. And thank you also, Abhinav and Avinash, so much. It was really, really nice. Thank you. And thank you, Marike, and everybody to participate.
Yeah. Thank you, dear. And I'm so happy that you were here and that you shared all those interesting things. And we're this now Richard one more video that we just made together. And yes, it is recorded, and we will meet next month. I mean, we will meet next week. Who cares to come to see what is coming next week? But the next panel talk will be next month, and you're all are so welcome to come and share your thoughts and ideas there also. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.